It appeared the meats had been weighed with the packaging. Calculated overcharges per item were between 4 and 11%.
All right, folks, I have a great one for you today because this story says so much, both about the power of corporations in our lives and as it applies to the cost of living, but also the importance of a public broadcaster in uncovering something like this. So let me first start with the headline here from CBC. This is their investigation. They uncovered grocers overcharging customers by selling underweighted meat. Now, I'm going to get deeper into this story. This is a reminder of a previous story. This is from last year. Loblaws George Weston to pay $500 million for bread price fixing scheme in record antitrust settlement. So, just a quick summary on that in case you were living under a rock. The class action case was brought against a group of companies that includes Loblaws and the Weston Companies, Metro, Walmart Canada, Giant Tiger, and Sobeys, and its owner Empire Co. The plaintiffs allege those companies participated in a 14-year industry-wide price-fixing conspiracy between 2001 and 2015, leading to an artificial increase in packaged bread prices. Massive companies working together to screw the average person over. So I'm going to get deeper into this overweighted meat story, but it's a reminder of the importance of a public broadcaster to cover something like this, to investigate this sort of corporate corruption, because this is the alternative. National Post here at the time, writing about the bread price, or not bread price fixing, this was about greedflation. Blame poor government choices for high food costs, not greedflation. So this is the kind of offering you get from corporate controlled media. Meanwhile, TVO, this is another public broadcaster, this one in Ontario. Canada must do more to protect consumers from grocery greedflation. So they actually go on to cite the Competition Bureau that looked into this, saying the Competition Bureau Retail Grocery Market Study Report, the sacred scroll we've all been waiting for, has just been released. And while it is detailed, long, and nuanced on the issue of greedflation, it feels unequivocal. This is a quote from their report. Instead of looking at prices, gross profit margins can provide a clear signal. These margins subtract the cost that grocers incur to buy products and show how much a grocer makes on each dollar of sales. We saw Canada's largest grocers' food gross margins generally increase by a modest yet meaningful amount over the last 5 years. This longer-term trend predates the supply chain disruptions faced during the pandemic and the current inflationary period. Meaning, their prices have been artificially increased to that has led directly to their massive profits. Again, showcasing that yes, greedflation is real, it is a thing, meaning these massive corporations are taking advantage of the inflationary period to increase their prices even more to increase their profits. They cannot blame, supply chain for this issue. No, because it predates the supply chain disruptions. And it also predates the inflationary period, meaning that these grocers have been taking advantage of people, not just during the inflationary period, but before it as well. So, a lot of the defense from these companies and those defending them, as I'll get to in a second here, is that, well, look, because the greed predates the inflationary period, that means there is no greedflation. No, it simply means that these massive companies have been taking advantage of people for even longer than we suspected. So, again, the difference here, you have a public broadcaster breaking this down properly. Yet, look at the Financial Post. I wonder what their interests are. Competition Bureau report puts grocery greedflation to rest. But I just read the quote from their report to you, showing that it's not put to rest, that, in fact, it is a serious problem. Now, the amazing thing about this is all you have to do is look at who is writing these pieces. So this is from the senior vice president for public affairs at Retail Council of Canada. I wonder what they do. They work unapologetically on behalf of retailers, championing their interests, which, of course, grocery stores fall under that. So they both advocate in the public, be it, pieces like this, but also they They use their advocacy when it comes to government policy as well. So this piece is written by someone that works on behalf of grocery stores saying that no, greedflation is not a real thing. And we can go back to the other story as well. This one, you check out who this is written by. Scroll down to the bottom. And right here, one of the writers is the founding president of MEI. This is the Montreal Economic Institute, which work on behalf of the interests of capitalists. One of their presidents, their former president, is Maxime Bernier, the leader of the People's Party of Canada, the furthest right party in Canada. And the other writer here is the president and executive director of the Regulatory Research Institute of Canada, a company that, once again, works on behalf of capitalist interests to try and cut regulations as a way to increase profits for massive corporations. This is the kind of advocacy you get when it comes to corporate media. This is why a public broadcaster like CBC, like TVO, why they are so important to society. Now, let me get back to the meat price fixing story here, or I should say the overweighted meat story. So the Loblaws grocery chain overcharged customers by selling underweighted meat across 80 stores for an undisclosed period that ended in December 2023, a CBC News investigation found. On top of that, over the past few months, CBC News visited seven major grocery stores in 3 different provinces and discovered packages of underweighted meat in 4 of them, 2 Loblaws stores and 1 Sobeys owned location, plus a Walmart. Calculated overcharges per item range from 4 to 11%. Now, they did this by including the hard plastic tray in the weighing of the meat. Under federal regulations, posted net weights for packaged food and prices based on that weight can't include the packaging. Now, before I get to the CBC News clip on this, ask yourself, if this was a mistake that was costing these companies money, if it was costing them money as opposed to the customer money, how quickly do you think they would have caught this and fixed it? Not to mention likely fired the people that were making the mistake and costing them money. Yet, because it was costing the customer money, there is no real oversight here because why would they care? If they're going to get caught, they're going to get caught, but they're going to wait to get caught to eventually address it. And as you're going to see in the CBC News clip, it wasn't even really addressed. So check this out.
Griffin complained to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which alerted Loblaws. The grocer says, due to an error involved in a change in packaging, it sold a small number of underweighted meat products in 80 stores across Western Canada. The CFIA says it issued no fines because Loblaws fixed the problem.
Okay, and weighing the meats.
1 year later, CBC News went shopping and found several packages of underweighted meat at 2 Loblaws stores and 1 Sobeys owned location, plus this Walmart. It appeared the meats had been weighed with the packaging. Calculated overcharges per item were between 4 and 11%.
Doesn't surprise me at all that it's still a problem.
Retired CFIA inspector Terry Lee says when on the job, she often found underweighted meat in stores. She says both the CFIA and grocers need to do more to protect shoppers.
It's a hidden cost to consumers. The stores, they need to do more auditing. They need to get in there and they need to check their weights more often.
In an email, Loblaws apologized for its misweighed meat and said it has reviewed all weighted products for accuracy and refreshed in-store training. Sobeys and Walmart said they're addressing the issues CBC found with third-party partners which weighed the meat. This consumer advocate says even a small weight discrepancy can, over time, add up to big profits for grocers.
Potentially into millions and millions of dollars. So there's definitely a need here for some kind of rectification that consumers get compensated.
When asked, Loblaws said it will offer compensation. Sobeys and Walmart didn't respond. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
So a year ago, they were caught doing this. Claimed at the time that they had rectified the problem. Yet a year later, caught still doing it. And not just them, but other grocers as well. This goes to why oversight, why investigations like this are so important, and why we cannot rely on corporate owned media to do them, because these are advertisers in their space. These grocers, many of them advertise on these very networks, on corporate networks, through their newspapers like the Post, National Post. They rely on them. They work together. If you go in, you can do this research yourself. Look up, investigations by whether, CTV News, National Post, whoever it is. You will find a hard time coming across investigations where they are looking into the greed of massive corporations, because they simply do not do them. It's not that journalists that work there are bad or don't want to do them, but there is sort of this unwritten rule that, hey, we're all friends here. We're all capitalists here. We all work together. We're not going to investigate each other. So because of that, places like CBC News, like TVO, they are so incredibly important. Yet you have leaders like Pierre Poilievre of the Conservative Party wanting to defund the CBC, even though, as Call Montreal writes here, Canadians don't want them to be defunded. So there's at least a couple of surveys on this. This one is from Angus Reid. Do you think it would be a good thing or a bad thing if the CPC, the Conservative Party of Canada, formed government and did the following? So you can read through, balance the budget. People support that. Lower income taxes. Go down. Defend and dismantle Canadian broadcasting. The majority of people say it is a very bad or bad thing. Only 30% want to see it. So another survey, this one from the Toronto Star, showed that 78% of Canadians want the CBC to continue. That includes 67% of Canadians who identify as conservative, because conservative voters understand as well that, hey, a public broadcaster is important for a variety of reasons. Worth noting here, Canada ranks, so people say, oh, but it's so expensive. Canada ranks 18th out of 20 major countries for government spending on public service media. That's from a 2018 study. Our national public media service is the second lowest funded among G7 countries. And of course, the US is the lowest, which has no real equivalent to the BBC or others. So this is, it's not just important for investigations into, corporate greed, for example. It's also important for a national identity. So this piece in DesiBuzzCanada.com, I think, puts it very well. An independent public broadcaster is a necessity for a thriving democracy, providing Canadians with shared access to high-quality local and national news and programming. The focus of private broadcasters is to make profits for their owners and shareholders. They are not interested in providing high-quality local or national news or in contributing to the development of a shared national consciousness and identity and culture. There are fair criticisms to make of CBC News, and I've made those criticisms. I think they are too close to capitalist power. I think they fall into many of the same mainstream narratives that a lot of the media falls into. But at the same time, they are more willing to have a wider range of voices on their platform. And that wider range includes people that are critical of capitalism, people that are critical of corporate power, people that are willing to do investigations into corporate greed. This is the kind of thing that is not often seen in media that is run by a massive corporation, for the obvious reason being that they are a massive corporation. So they're going to be less critical of capitalism, less critical of corporate greed. So I think it's important, to point to this story as one that both points out the greed of massive corporations and how they screw over the average person, but also one to look to when it comes to how important a public broadcaster is.